Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be analyzing the Black Mirror episode Nosedive through the lens of the social construction of technology, or SCOT. So SCOT argues that technology is not neutral or deterministic. Instead, technology is shaped by the social groups that use it, and its meaning and function are negotiated throughout society. So my goal in this presentation is to explain how SCOT helps us understand the world of Nosedive and what it says about our relationship with technology. Alright, so I will be analyzing Nosedive through four key concepts in SCOT. I have interpretive flexibility, social groups and contexts, closure and stabilization, and any technological frames. So interpretive flexibility, meaning that technologies can have different meanings depending on who is using them and for what purpose. Social groups are going to be the communities or relevant people who shape how technology is designed and or used. Closure and stability happen when society agrees on the meaning and purpose of a technology and becomes a standard or a norm. And lastly, technological frames, or any shared assumptions and values that guide how we think about and interact with any given technology that is in the situation. Now we can get into in Nosedive how this applies to it. So early in the episode, we see Lacey rehearsing her smile and interactions while obsessively checking her social score, hoping that others would give her a high rating. So essentially how it works here is everything that you do, every interaction you have, every small thing is going to get rated by somebody else. And that rating can be high, that rating can be low. But the goal is to get a high rating, because the higher your rating, the more socially acceptable it is. So using SCOT, it helps to see that the rating app is not just this neutral tool that you can use, because it has socially constructed to represent a person's worth and status. So the relevant social group here is basically the entire society, which has decided that ratings determine housing, travel, and even social acceptance. So through this, it shows closure and stabilization. The technology is no longer questioned, but fully embedded into everybody's everyday life. You wake up, you're using it, you go to sleep, you've used it throughout the entire day. In Nosedive, this kind of shifts for Lacey because it kind of starts going downhill for her. So Lacey's invitation to Naomi's wedding shows how ratings function as like a gatekeeping mechanism, since Naomi only invites Lacey because of her potential to boost her own rating. Since, at the beginning of this episode, Lacey does have a pretty high rating. I think it's about 4.2 out of 5, which is pretty high. So SCOT highlighting the interpretive flexibility, because for Naomi, the system is a way to maintain her social power, to maintain her high rating, while for Lacey, it's more of a path to upward mobility. So if she's attending more of these high rated things and getting more high ratings, then she could kind of climb up this little hierarchy that the system is setting up. So these competing interpretations demonstrate that the technology carries different meanings depending on what social group you're in. Like again, Naomi with her higher social group wants to maintain, Lacey with a slightly lower but still wants to go higher as she can, so she goes to events such as these. This, however, is when things start to go wrong for Lacey, because Lacey is already very obsessed, very anxious over her rating. She wants it to be higher, but in this episode, even though little small things she tries to do to have people to give her those 5 stars to get her rating up, it still isn't enough. She's still getting 4 stars here and there. Like at the beginning, she wanted to get 5 stars for this little nice breakfast that she set up. And she did not get all the 5 stars, and she got some 4 stars. And even that small thing just starts to get to her, because once you have one thing that's lower, it starts to affect you emotionally, as it probably would in that society, and then it just starts building up. So these small things, lower ratings start to build up. She becomes more emotional, and things start affecting her more, and then her score eventually just starts lowering and lowering and lowering. And at some point, about midway through, she can't even catch a ride in a car with somebody else because her rating is so low. They saw that in the vehicle and they just passed right on by because they didn't want to have to do with anybody who's under a specific threshold. So, as a result of all these things starting to build up, it gets to the actual wedding situation, the one that she was invited to at the beginning. And Lacey just has a complete breakdown. So when Lacey finally breaks down, and she goes as far as screaming at the wedding, throwing things, just making an absolute mess of herself and the situation, she is socially punished after her rating just absolutely plummets from that, because everybody there is seeing what's going on, is seeing her just freak out, do things that aren't socially acceptable, and so she's just getting tons and tons and tons of low ratings, hence lowering her score by a large margin. So this is the moment where we see the technological frame in action. Society is collectively enforcing the rules of polite behavior tied to this rating system that they have. And SCOT helps us see that technology is maintained not by its design alone, even though that helps, but it's by the social consensus and participation of everybody else who's doing this. So yes, it's giving people these low ratings, but since in their minds this is what dictates a person's worth, this is what they're going off of, by that logic, they're now put lower because of the system that they have created. So they haven't been doing it by themselves. It is the technology and the people who are influencing that technology. And finally, at the end of Nosedive, Lacey is put into prison. She has her whole breakdown, she's arrested, she gets put into incarceration. However, one thing about prison is they take out her implants to see the social scores and all the monitoring that goes on. And interestingly enough, she finally finds this peace and this tranquility in all of it, because she doesn't have to worry about what she's saying or what she's doing, because she doesn't have to worry about her social score, because that's no longer applying to her, because she's in prison, she's by herself. And through this, she finally just has this release of like, I can finally just say what I want, I can do what I want, I can just be herself, which kind of is very interesting through everything else that's been going on, because we've been so focused this whole time on her trying to be perfect, trying to get high ratings, and climb up in that social hierarchy. This puts us as the audience as a very interesting position and a lot to think about. So Nosedive positions us to reflect on how our social systems function. So we have many platforms. We have Instagram, TikTok, tons and tons of social media platforms that we can go on. We have access to, we can post content on, just all these things we can do. And it's now shaping what we collectively value. Now, we might not have a rating system as drastic as you see in Nosedive. However, we still have likes, we still have followers, we still have just overall engagement with views, just across all these different platforms. And in a way, it might not be as extreme currently. It's still showing the same ideas in Nosedive of how we're getting all these things inputted towards us. We have this rating for us. Well, it may not be like, 4 out of 5 stars. It's still showing me like, okay, I got 30 likes on this, I got 100 likes on this, or even got 1,000,000 likes on it. That's what some people are putting their worth in, because it's what they find worth in. So what this episode is kind of hinting at and warning at is if you continue to reinforce these norms of, posting something, getting likes, views, followers, or just activity around each thing, we could stabilize a system where ratings, like in Nosedive, dictate our social existence. So every time we go on, instead of having worth in the physical things we do, the actions we make, it's more about these platforms, these social media platforms. So when I'm going on, I'm trying to get likes, views, followers, I'm getting my rating up as high as I can so I can feel better about myself and be more accepted by the society as a whole. Alright, for some closing thoughts. Now, what I was thinking about is through SCOT, we see that Nosedive really isn't about technology controlling us. Now, it might seem that way at first, because through these ratings, people's decisions are being affected, and it seems like it's only from those ratings in which they're getting affected. However, it's more about us shaping the technology that we created in ways that can harm and sometimes help society. In this instance, it seemed way more directed towards harm, because you see just how absolutely downhill Lacey's life was. Once she started getting those little ratings, it started affecting her even more. And all of a sudden, at the end, she's just completely freaking out, losing it, and it's all over the place. However, it's not that the rating system itself did that. It's because we're letting that rating system dictate our worth, what we do, and everything that is encompassed by that. So, by examining social groups, the interpretive flexibility, technological frames, we recognize that change is indeed possible. But we have to renegotiate how we value and use these systems, because if we do kind of more lean towards how it is in Nosedive with, with having it affect your worth, dictate what you do, the same things I've been saying this whole time, it will get to that point. It will be that dramatic, and it's not going to end well for anybody, because as you can clearly see, once those small things start going, you're down the gutter, and once you get a low rating, it's near impossible to get it back. because people see you as this, 1.2 star rating. Why would you want to invest any time in that? They've obviously already put themselves in the gutter, and that's just it. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Have a good day.